welcome to UPN Focus. I'm your host, Milt Thompson, and as you well know, we have had all kinds of exciting shows about events and activities that are going around our community. And from time to time, I bring you special one-on-one interviews with special guests from perhaps not inside Indianapolis, but has stories that are compelling enough that it has an impact on you right here in Central Indiana. We have one of those special shows and guests with us today, and that is in the form of Rosemary Smith. Rosemary is the author of an astonishing book called Children of the Dome. Rosemary, welcome to UPN Focus.
Thank you, Milt. I'm glad to be here today.
Well, before we get into the details of this book, and I'm going to let our audience know that this is not one of those, well, it can be really spiritually uplifting kind of a books, but it really starts out in very tragedy kind of ways. And your background as a pharmacist does not necessarily relate to your background as an author of this wonderful book. Why don't you tell us about why this kind of subject matter is something that you have chosen as a course of action in life?
Milt, as you said, my husband and I are both pharmacists, and we practice in eastern Kentucky in a small town called Beattyville. But in the summer of 1992, our lives changed forever when our two older sons were killed in a car accident. They had been in Indianapolis the last night of their lives, right here in this town, and they had been to a concert, and they were killed on the way home the next morning instantly.
What does that do to a family when you're just suddenly, one day probably just as happy as you can be with wonderful youngsters, and then all of a sudden, tragically, in one moment, your life has changed. So what's that feel like?
I call it terror. I was terrified. We had three sons. We had an 11-year-old son who survived. He was not with his brothers. Thankfully, he wasn't old enough to go. You can't describe it. It's a parent's worst nightmare, but it came true to our family. And within a blink of an eye, a policeman walked in my drugstore and was this close to me and said, "Drew's dead." That was our oldest son's name, and I knew that was impossible because he was in Indianapolis in a hotel and he was safe, but that was not true. He had evidently left early. He had checked out very early, maybe had not slept. We think that's probably what happened, but it is a terrifying situation, but one that immediately we were surrounded by family and friends in a small town. You can imagine everyone knew us and knew our sons.
After the immediate trauma is kind of over, and you go through all the perfunctory things, if you will, that are necessary in terms of burying your children. What happens? Yeah, how can you do that?
That's true. I mean, that's the thing. How do you even think about it? We had thought of nothing of this, but like you say, you go through the wake and the funerals, and you're supported by people. But to stand and see two coffins of these young boys, carried by their friends who the day before they had been to a concert with them, it's unbelievable. But then you realize, there are three of you left. I have a husband who I loved, and we had an 11-year-old son, and we had to go on.
So what steps do you take in terms of the healing, in terms of allowing yourself grief, and what is the grieving process, and what did you do specifically to get over it?
You have to go through. There are the steps. I didn't know the steps of grief, and now I couldn't list them, but I know I went through them. I was angry. I was angry with God at the beginning. I was angry at how this could happen, because these were wonderful boys, and we were a good family. We did things for other people. We were Christian people. We raised our children in a church. But then I did the what ifs. What if they hadn't have gone to the concert, and what if? As a parent, you try to do everything so your children are safe. But you go through the anger, the denial, this couldn't have happened to me. But finally the realization, it did happen to me. And what am I going to do? Why am I still here?
So you go through these stages, yes. Professional assistants or yes. Pastoral assistants or otherwise, and they're trying to lay out options or courses of action so that you can get on with it. Did you avail yourself of those kinds of
Definitely did. We went to a grief counselor, mainly for Jordan, we said, our 11-year-old, but we found that it was very beneficial to us, and we always suggest that to other parents that we contact. I think that was very important. I did a lot of journaling. I wrote down my feelings. But the key thing that I did was I started to call other families who lose children. And that was I believe, my reason for still being here.
Well,
that was my life.
So you got him on the phone and you said, I've had a tragedy just like you. Let's talk about it.
That's right. I know that sounds odd, but I did that 3 weeks after the boys were killed. I read about a family in Louisville, Kentucky, who had lost their daughter. She was 18, she was Drew's age. And I just said, you don't know me, but maybe I can help you. Because I had been through the wake and the funeral. And I thought maybe I could, just help them in some way.
So this is what kind of led you until really kind of a mission.
Yes.
And
I had to do it. It was just a force. I don't know how to explain what it was, but it was my way of just talking about Drew and Jeremiah. They were not forgotten then. I was sharing them with other families. But then I was getting to know these other children, these other kids that I didn't know before.
Tell me about their families and how were the experiences that they were sharing with you similar to yours, or were they all so much different in their own right?
They were all different, but we shared such similar things. They would say, "Oh, I feel this anger, and I feel guilty that I'm angry." I would say, "No, that's very normal." I did the very same thing. But I think by sharing these children and talking about loss, because all of us will have loss in our lives. Well, we all will, whether it's the loss of your mother or your father or a brother. But to share and to be able to talk openly with someone that these children did not just go away. They did exist and they were very important. So it was good. It was good for all of us.
Therapeutic for you, therapeutic for them.
Yes.
At the same time gave you an opportunity then to perhaps share additional messages with others who perhaps haven't even experienced it, but may experience it at some point.
Exactly
and
right.
you did that in the form of a book, a compilation of these stories.
That's exactly what
Children of the Dome. Can we get a close-up look at that? Children of the Dome. Tell us about Children of the Dome, what inspiration for its writing, wonderfully depicted pictures on the front of the cherubs. Tell us a little bit about what got you fired up to do that.
I had my mother died very young with breast cancer. I always thought that would be my cross to bear, what I would have. I've just felt like that would be what I would face, never realizing I would lose my two sons. But 3 years after Drew and Jeremiah were killed, I also had a diagnosis at the same age as my mother, 47, with breast cancer. But it was caught very early, and I realized that I was given time. None of us know how long we'll have. I think I realized that after the death of my sons, that we should live every day, that every day is so important. But with this second kind of diagnosis, I realized that I wanted to write the story of these boys. I was still their mother. I wanted them to be remembered. And I didn't know how much time I would have left. So this kind of gave me the impetus to say, okay, this is time to write this book.
And Children of the Dome, what's that?
Well, there is a dome. There's an actual dome in Williamsburg, Kentucky, in Cumberland College. They were building an inn where their students could learn hotel management. And we were asked to commission a dome in memory of the children who were lost. So this is a huge dome with cherubs, which are quite similar to the cherubs on the front. The same artist also did the artwork for the book. So it's a beautiful dome in memory of children we've lost across the country.
Children of the Dome, about tragedy, but perhaps more importantly, about transformation. And we're going to talk about that right after these important words. And welcome back to UP in Focus. We've been talking with pharmacist, author, mother, wife, Rosemary Smith, about her compelling book, Children of the Dome, all based on tragedies of parents that lose their children. 28 true stories of survival and hope after the loss of a child. We've talked in the first segment about the tragedies and about what compelled you to move forward kind of in mission-like fashion to create linkages for those who are looking for them and may need them and require them. Tell us about one of those stories that are so wonderfully depicted in this book and what kind of transformation has occurred as a result of you being able to tell these stories.
I think one of the most compelling stories is the final chapter in the book, and I think that's why it is the final chapter. It's a story of the Greer family, who also live in Kentucky. They had 4 children, They lost their first child, Stephen, when he was 2 to leukemia, and this has been years ago. He would have been Jeremiah's age now. But the family thought then that that was probably all that was again their cross to bear. They lost a child. They changed the way they lived their lives, but again, this was a wonderful Christian family. But 5 years ago, their older son had gotten on drugs. He had had treatment several different times, and they were doing things as a family that they thought were right for this boy that they loved. But one day, just out of the blue, Buzzy stood up at the dinner table, and he shot his father, critically wounding his father, and then he killed his brother and sister, Todd and Cammie. And as he ran out of bullets, he shot, was going to kill his mother, but fortunately the gun was empty, and as he ran to reload the gun, his mother was able to escape. But Buzzy then killed himself as he was being chased by the police. So this family, in an instant, lost the 3 remaining children that they had through a murder of his brother and sister and then a suicide. But I had a call about Becky Greer, the mother, about 6 months later, saying, could you call Becky Greer? This was a mission that one of my friends had called me. And I didn't know what to say to Becky Greer. I couldn't say to her, I know what you're going through.
I know what you feel, because you don't.
No.
Even
No.
with your
I
history,
didn't know.
you didn't understand how this could occur. And
But I felt like I was told that I needed to call her, that she was there, she was not getting out, she was on the verge of suicide, and she would listen if I called, and maybe she would take my call. And I called for 2.5 months, literally every day. I would say something different each day. I would talk about Kentucky basketball. I know we're in Indiana State, but
yes, we are.
but we're all huge, very big Kentucky basketball fans. And I would bring that up, and that I knew her son Todd was a basketball fan, and I would bring up the next day something different about her children. But finally, one day, January 15th, I know the day, she took my phone call. And she said she did it because she said, do you know what tomorrow is? And I said, no. She said, tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary day of our tragedy, when they lost all 3 of their children. I didn't know the day exactly, but she said, I didn't know if I would be here tomorrow. She said, that's the reason I took your call. And the change that I have seen in this family, this husband and wife, wonderful people, I have seen them come from what Becky Greer calls her dark place, where she had lost her faith. She didn't think there was a God, but she has come back. She now speaks. She travels with me on the book. She is a wonderful, they both are, a testament. If they are standing, I say, if Becky and Gam Greer are here, we can all see that there is hope, that there is life after loss of any sort.
Rosemary, there are skeptics, there are atheists, there are agnostic, there are those who don't understand or want to understand. They're saying it's purely metaphysical, if there is anything. What's your response to those critics after having lived it and then experiencing the living of it with others?
As we talked during the break, when I first lost Drew and Jeremiah, just after the accident happened, the first hours, I felt such a void that they were gone. And as a Christian, I always believed that there was life after death. But when you lose a child, suddenly there are so many questions. None of us know. But as the months, and as I worked with these families, as I would call a new family and see the power of, really, that's all we have. I finally turned my life over to, why am I still here? And I said, God, why am I here? Use me as to what I'm to do. And I felt like this calling other families. Through them, I have seen such hope. I have seen the power of a spiritual nature through our children.
Visions.
Yes.
Dreams.
Right.
Activity.
Yellow butterflies.
Action.
It's
Butterflies.
yes.
Is this all our imagination?
No, I don't believe so. I will contact a new family, and the mother, we might have talked an hour and a half, and in that second hour, she'll say, something has happened to me. I can't tell anybody, they'll think I'm crazy, but I need to tell you, I saw my child. I saw his face. It was just a fleeting instant. Or I heard my child's voice. And am I crazy? And I'll say no, because I have done that. I can tell you many other people, I would say 95% of the people I have contacted, which is now over 1,000 families, will have some type of incident like this. We all know, we believe it very openly, that there is a hereafter and that they're around us. They're in a plane very close to us. We just can't see them.
And tell us some of the actions that people take once they have been transformed, or once they have been touched, or when they actually feel it, see it, know it, and believe it.
Several of the mothers in the book, actually, they were with their child. I was not with Drew and Jeremiah when they passed, when they died. But two of the mothers were with their children, holding the children. They said they felt their spirit leave. It was a feeling that they had. They felt this suction. They felt this spirit leave. But they felt a peace about it. It was such a peace. I have that peace now. It took me a while. I didn't have a peace for a long time. I would cry a lot, and I think that's a very normal thing. I was grieving very openly. But now there is such a peace about where my children are. They're right beside me. I know I'll see them again. And we're not afraid to die. That's another thing you'll see about people who have lost a child, who have had great loss.
Is the fear.
Yes. There is no fear any longer of dying.
What was the objective of you writing this book? What really was the reason why you would write down tragedies and
Well, number one, I didn't want these 33 children to be forgotten. I wanted them to be remembered. Number two, and it's a close second, is I think by reading these stories, people will see there is hope, that many of us have done very wonderful things in memory of these children. I think of the Gutzel family, another family in Kentucky. Dr. Gutzel was in internal medicine. He had a large practice in Lexington, Kentucky. But he gave all that up and went back to work with hospice patients in palliative medicine. So he changed his life in memory of his son Andrew. Not only in his memory, but knowing. Dr. Gutzel says he wants to work with people who are making the transition to where Andrew is, because he's been there. And we all know that death is a part of life, and it's not a scary thing to us now.
If we were to play word association game and I would say birth, what would you say?
Death.
If I were to say life, what would you say?
Life. Isn't that strange? I didn't have a quick answer. Oh, life is glorious to me now. Glorious, it is.
Death.
Again, peace.
Peace.
For me, it will be very peaceful.
Transformation, yes. Transition.
Yes.
And the stories you've seen actually changing the professional careers. I mean,
yes, many of us have.
You are now a noted author. Your pharmacy is as important to you as it was as a career or a profession.
Yes, this is more important to me. I still practice pharmacy. We still have independent pharmacies, but this is my life, working with people who've lost children.
Children of the Dome, Rosemary Smith will be back right after these words. Welcome back to UP in Focus. We've been talking with noted author, she says now noted, Rosemary Smith, who is the author of Children of the Dome, a book not only of tragedy, but one also of hope. And I expect that these stories, because I've had the opportunity to read as I could stay composed long enough to get through one of the chapters, when you get through it, you kind of go through those same stages of kind of grief, renewal, transformation, and then hope again, just perhaps as you do when you are grieving. This is a book that I would encourage others to take advantage of, but how might they take advantage of that? How can they find out about it? How can they maybe write to you or locate you on a web address? Or how might they find out? Are you on a tour? Are you going to be signing books? Or tell us a little bit about how you're going to go out and share this gift with others.
I have been on a book tour, which has been amazing. The book was released in June, and I've been in probably 8 states to this point. And I have been speaking at Compassionate Friends meetings, which is an organization for people who lose children, which is another thing I really encourage people to be in groups like this, support groups. But the book is available at Barnes & Noble, I know in Borders here in Indianapolis, on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. But again, my company, we have, Jordan Drug Inc. is the name of our company, and is available, of course, through us directly. But I have a website also that I think has been very important. I've been able to reach people really all over the world. It's called childrenofdome.com.
Childrenofdome.com, childrenofdome.com.
Right. And there I have a lot of information that I send. The families that I contact, I send books and videos and poems and different scriptures, things that have helped me, a reading list of books. And most of that information is on the website that they can download it if they never want to contact me. But a lot of people do contact me directly through the website.
Are you ever criticized by some therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or by trying to be an armchair quarterback or something like that to say, why don't you stick to pharmacy and leave this grief counseling to us? No criticism there, or do they find this supplementary or complementary to perhaps their practices?
I've had several people in those fields call me and say, I have a family, a mother who's lost a child, and I'm not getting through to her because I haven't been there. Would you call her? And I've done that on many occasions because I do know, like I don't have the training, I have the pharmacy training, you know, a pharmacy background, but I do have the background of losing 2 children, and that's...
There's something similar to dispensing of medicine. Versus that of dispensing drugs. And sometimes medicine can be from the heart and perhaps maybe even more telling and more healing.
I think you're right.
Well, we've got a lot of things going on around our community in addition to book signings and going to Borders and locating that. And we're going to invite our audience to take advantage of our community calendar. We'll do that right now.
Here are some events in our area for you to focus on. You're invited to dinner, a free Thanksgiving dinner at the Olive Branch Christian Church. Servings will be from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. with transportation and carryouts available. Olive Branch Christian Church is located at 101 East Raymond Street. Call for more details. Attention animal lovers, the Madison County Humane Society of Anderson is hosting Our Pet Project. This is our annual Christmas craft and hobby show. The show will be November 17th and 18th at the National Guard Armory on State Road 9 in Anderson. And you're invited to the Sound the Alarm Christmas Festival in Newcastle. Of course, there will be craft booths, food, fun, and music. Enter the drawing for a handmade quilt. Join in on the fun November 17th and 18th at Memorial Park in Newcastle for this fun event. We'd like to hear from you. Send your event information 3 weeks in advance to be part of the UPN 23 community calendar.
After you take advantage of those wonderful community opportunities shown on our calendar, I know you'll take the opportunity to go to Borders, Barnes & Noble, hit the website, and find this book, Children of the Dome by Rosemary Smith. Rosemary, thank you so much for coming, sharing your story with us. A blessing not only to me, but I'm hopeful a blessing to all of those out in our land. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mill.
And you come right back here this time next week on UPN Focus. We'll see you right here.